Hello, everyone, and welcome to Shelf Indulgence, where we explore the world of books, ideas, and lifelong learning.
That's right. Today's episode is all about nonfiction, the stories that are true, the facts that shape our world, and the ideas that challenge how we think.
Whether you love history, science, memoirs, or deep dives into current events, nonfiction offers something for every curious mind.
And we're especially excited today because we are joined by a guest who is an avid nonfiction reader and has some fantastic recommendations and insights to share. Please welcome AJ, Vi's spouse. We're so glad you're here.
Thank you. I'm excited to talk about nonfiction. There's just so much out there that can inspire, inform, and even change your perspective.
Absolutely. Let's dive in and explore some incredible reads together. And as usual, and as we always start, everybody welcome. Thank you so much for joining us once again on our episodes here. And as we always try to fumble our way through, but we appreciate you guys' support and listening to us. So again, today's genre is nonfiction favorites. That is our guest here, again, my spouse. And he is more of that nonfiction reader. I do occasionally dabble in it. And also when I'm forced to listen to one of his books on the road, it's fine, but I do enjoy them. It's just not something I would normally pick up. And I think me and you, Katie, have
Yes.
talked like it's something that I don't know if you pick it up as often. I know we do read them. It's just
Right.
not.
And my spouse likes nonfiction too. So
Yeah.
it's like I really like memoirs that's about and then some medical stuff.
Yeah, I was gonna say
Not as
definitely.
often.
Definitely,
Yeah.
definitely one of those things. And
So it's a good diversion to to
yeah,
get
I was just gonna say
into
we're
something
huge.
different.
Yes, absolutely. I'm just like, we can't forget about these true story type things, right? Where we're talking about whether it's cookbooks, whether it's crafting, all these other wonderful nonfiction books. And AJ, we're so glad that you're here to join us because we needed some more perspective on things that we don't normally touch on usually.
Right.
So tell us about what nonfiction books perhaps you have loved recently and why did you pick them up? Or will you tell us a little bit? I know we have some books here that you've gotten. You can discuss about those if you'd like, or whatever you have. Just tell us what you're thinking.
Well, I think my interest in nonfiction has been since middle school. I've always done more of the history based. I like learning military history, war history, and then memoirs. I've always been interested in how people, how their paths led them to where they were, mostly celebrities, because that's most of the books that you're going to find. It's not a lot of regular people write books about their lives.
True.
Um, so
Yeah.
I searched around. The books I brought today are, I believe, all biography.
Mhm.
But I've done a bunch of reading from there's different selections from the Auschwitz
Yes.
time. There's the Auschwitz photographer was one I read last year, and it documents the prisoner who was in charge of taking all of the pictures of the other prisoners.
Wow.
And so it's a really long book. It's obviously not all positive. It was a horrific time, but he did his best to get the history of each person as he was taking the pictures.
Oh, that's a good.
That
Yeah,
is,
to
and
hear
it's
their
such a
story.
necessary, exactly.
He was
Yeah.
trying to still
Document.
document the person behind the picture as they all had to go through the process, but they were still supervised by the Nazi military. So there was occasions when they were left alone and they could actually inquire, and they used it to sneak food back into the camps,
Wow.
extra clothing. They would take those minutes when because they became sort of trusted and they would be given extra bread and things and they would sneak it back through to try to get it back into the camps. So and then there's several not by the same author, but there's the tattooist.
Yes.
There's a librarian.
Yes, I want to read that.
There's several. If you look up
Auschwitz.
Auschwitz, you'll see there's all kinds of them. They're not by the same author, but they follow the same general concept of what they were trying to do to make it out. Um, one of my more favorites, I don't really know how I found it. And I forgot to bring it today, but it's my Madeleine Albright. She was our first female Secretary of State, and she's written, I want to say five books. Her first one that I read is called Madam Secretary, and it's the story of her life. And she was born in, I want to say Berlin, but that may not be right. Her father was political against communism, so she began a life in hiding from a very young age, 3 or 4. They had to go undercover and run for England through the wars and stuff. They were allowed home, and then they ran again and ended up in Denver. And he was a professor. She grew up in Denver, and then followed her path into politics sort of by accident. I mean, it wasn't where she was headed, but the idea that somebody not born in the US started watching their parents try to get out of those situations.
Yeah, that.
Exactly. I was gonna say she has that background experience.
Yeah, watching it.
Yeah, so then as Secretary of State, she was working with all of those countries, and eventually she worked with people that had known her dad. As he worked through those, she was meeting people that were in that same fight before. And so her process through the government and politics, and then also just the struggle of being a female in those roles as the first one. She's got tons of books. They vary from very political, just what she was dealing with at the time. And then if you have seen her or knew anything about her, she always had a brooch pin. And there's a whole series of a whole book she's written about the jewelry and kind of where it came from. And it's not political, you know.
Yes.
More of
That
that
would be
personal
interesting,
touch, right? More of the
exactly.
personal
Yeah.
touch of knowing her background and what, like, why, you know, what she does, those little things, like why she always wore a brooch, because that was that thing. And I think that was part of it. They're like, why do you always
That'd be
wear
really interesting.
that brooch? And she has a storyline, a history behind that as well.
Yeah, it was a tribute, I think, to a family member. And then, you know, she found out through researching and looking into her family and through her time as Secretary of State, she found out that her grandparents were actually taken by the Nazis. And
Oh,
I
wow.
believe three I believe 3 of the 4 may have died. So she learned, she didn't know that they had the Jewish background and that they had been in the camps. And so she learned that as an adult, then going back through.
That's amazing.
So then that gave her different purpose, you know, to know that her family had struggled through that. And when her parents left to come to the US, they knew they would likely not ever be allowed back. They wouldn't see them. You know, that they were just leaving everything, not just their parents, they had siblings, and so just to
That's hard.
I was gonna say, and there's so many stories where it followed that. I mean, she's telling one story in 1,000 too.
Right.
It's
Like, you're like, it's just one person out of all
will
these
get
people.
read because she's more famous, and so she's bringing out everyone's story of sorrow, honestly, by writing it.
Yeah, so I do audiobooks, but I've listened to, I believe, at least 3 of hers. And I'm on Madam Secretary for a second time. And then another big one for me was The Grateful American. It's a journey from self to service, which is the book by Gary Sinise. One of the books, I think he has others now. And his level of involvement now in military and veteran awareness was nowhere on his path when he got into acting. he had done schooling and he had, he wanted to be an actor and he had those goals, but he was not as aware of or invested in the military role until he got Forrest Gump.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
So
Okay.
that
I'm putting
He's a
two and two
lieutenant.
together a little bit.
Yeah, I was like, he's a
Is he Captain
lieutenant, Lieutenant Dan.
Yes, Lieutenant Dan. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
yeah, so that
Putting two and two.
started him on the path. Just his time in that movie, and they did a lot of interacting with the military, and he saw the issues and the needs, and it's become what it is now. He
That sounds like an
makes
amazing.
houses, and he adapts them for injured veterans, and
Custom built homes for.
he's got a band,
That sounds.
and they just, I mean, almost his whole career now is veteran based, and that
Wow.
wasn't where he started as in his 20s.
As an actor, right, in Hollywood.
Exactly.
Going from that lifestyle into a life of service to be able to give back to the people who did give to,
Yeah.
for us as well. So the veterans and anyone from the military, which I think.
That sounds like an amazing story.
Yeah,
too.
so that
I
one,
have to read that
was
one.
really good. Just to see how something as basic as a role in a movie just completely changed his path.
Yeah, yeah.
And there's
those moments.
there's a few different actors and actresses that are that way
Mhm.
too, like Angelina Jolie, I believe. I mean, with her, she adopted the child from Cambodia because of a movie
Mhm.
that she did, and she's gone into overseas stuff and
Right,
since
right.
then, as an ambassador of the UN.
Yes, exactly.
It's like because they see it, they don't realize the need until they actually see it because of a movie part.
Yeah.
Because they're there, because they're visiting, because they're shooting there, and then they're like, wait a minute, like,
And they can
you
give
start
back.
getting interested into,
Yeah, because
the listening.
they film in countries where you wouldn't necessarily visit on a
Exactly.
vacation, and so they see the behind the scenes
The
of it.
devastation.
They're not at a resort where they would typically visit. So I think a lot of that is it if they're in their surroundings and aware of it, that
Yes.
it does change a lot of them.
Yeah.
And
then
then just general celebrity stuff. I like to see where they started, what path the struggles to get. We just see the fun side, the movies and the
Right.
money, and to see, how many times they were told they weren't any good at something, or
it's encouraging
yeah,
to see that, to know that maybe we could come up out of something too.
yeah,
they again, they're telling that story of thousands of people through their story, and again, it's going to get read because they're more famous.
Right. Yeah. So I think it started for me in like I said, middle school. I love Lucille Ball and her show, the I Love Lucy, obviously. And so in school you have to read, books from all kinds. I was part of the AR system. I think they still use it. It was very new for me. And so sometimes you did have to read nonfiction. And so I started with biographies, and I think Lucy was one of the first ones I read. There's several that have been written about her. None that I don't believe she actually wrote any, but she did sit down with people periodically. And the first one was a journalist, I think, and he had been with her for years. She loved games, board games, any of those. She played all the TV show games, and they would meet and play backgammon once a week. And she would tell him stories of what had happened from growing up. And then eventually he put it into a book. He was
So just a basic conversation, which is also that laid back feel of not feeling like you're being interviewed, because I feel like sometimes that also skews what you want to say. Just like when we do we're like, what are we gonna talk about? It's that. But when it comes naturally and they're just having a conversation, those are the really good stories that you don't go out in public and tell, like, let me tell you that one time I skinned my knee kind of thing, but that story is something relevant to whatever it may be, or how it made a change, like
Mhm.
we say, those little moments make those changes. So yeah, I knew. Yeah.
Did you read her one called Desilu, I think, and it's about her and Desi and their
Yeah, I
relationship.
believe I read that one.
I
It's
started
been a
into
while.
that one, and I was like,
Yeah, it was, I mean, the two of them together individually, they were both incredible. I mean, they
yes,
changed
both of them were.
a lot of how TV
TV is
itself
done.
Yes.
is done.
Yeah, they created pretty much the sitcom that we know now with
Yeah.
the lighting and indoor
Yeah,
and
he
that.
he changed the whole way they even filmed TV at the time.
Mhm.
He had a whole vision of how it could be done. And she was stubborn enough that when they said nobody's going to believe it, she said, well, that's how it is. So we're going to do it. And so um, she was brave enough to stand up to all the men again
Yeah.
and became one of the first females to run a studio like that, especially after their divorce. She took over the whole thing, and their studio created film Star Trek
Yes,
and
yeah.
hundreds of other TV shows. You know, she's used to sneak in and watch Dick Van Dyke as they were filming because all of it was on her
That's right, it was.
studio.
I think Mission Impossible 2 was another, or Mission Impossible, yeah,
Uh-huh.
was one too on her with Desilu.
Yeah, they
That's
just
crazy. Yeah.
they had just hundreds of things that were on their lot, and they had created the sound stages and the way cameras were ran.
And they were the first on TV anyways, interracial couple. That was a
Yes.
huge thing she fought for.
Yes.
I know. And then the pregnancy episode, that was
Yes,
a
that was
major breakthrough.
huge.
Major
Pregnancy on
breakthrough.
TV.
Yeah.
And yeah, and just to be
Together.
so um she was new, but without like she's like, it's just life. Like this is what's happening. She was pregnant in real life. And
Mhm.
so she was married to Desi in real life. And she's like, this is how it is. This is what's happening in the world. So
What made it so relatable.
right.
And why
Right.
everybody fell in love with her.
Mhm.
Exactly, because like this is a real life. I mean, yes, we're filming it, but really this is our
Right.
life. This is what you're
Exactly.
kind of seeing here. This is what is actually happening.
She was really good friends with Carol Burnett too,
Yes.
wasn't she?
Yeah, they
I was like,
were.
'cause they showed up together a lot.
She was several years older than Carol and found her through and that's an interesting process. Also Carol talks about you know, meeting Lucy and how it worked and they did a few things together. They did some of those I can't remember what they're called.
Skits?
Yeah, sort of the skit shows. They did some of that stuff
Variety,
together.
the variety shows.
Yes,
Yeah.
like Carol's show and Lucy did some of those and they were really best friends outside of just behind the scenes. They were best friends and Lucy sent her flowers every year on her birthday. Lucy happened to pass on Carol's birthday and the flowers came
Oh,
that
wow.
afternoon because you know they were already ordered and so I mean they were just honest friends and Carol herself you know came up in a different time period and she's had struggles, she's lost a child and you know she's dealt with family with addiction and to still keep I mean she's in her 90s now and still acting
Isn't that, yeah, it's
That's
like amazing.
amazing.
Yeah.
It really is.
same with Betty White, she was acting into her 90s and
Mhm.
um I've read her book. She's got a couple, and then of course there's hundreds that people wrote about them.
Right.
I'm a little more cautious with books that are written by others. I prefer to stick to books written by the person
Yeah.
because I feel like it's
Or at least endorsed by the person.
right.
Right.
Yeah.
Because at some point you have to be careful when it becomes maybe a little fiction in there. If
Right, because they're trying to just, you know, sell the story. It's those.
Fantasticize it or.
Right, right. It's kind of like the books when we read the books and they made them into movies and they've changed them because
Yes.
it doesn't necessarily what was in the book is going to fit the film. or whatever it is. And so they start skewing those little bits and little details, and you're like, that really wasn't exactly how
like,
that
did they
happened.
really know this person?
Right.
Or have they could be an excellent journalist, but maybe never met you. I mean, I could watch you for a while and write what I think.
What
They're
you're
getting,
doing.
yeah, they're getting their story from somebody
Right.
else's perspective.
Yeah, but then
Right,
they
yeah.
just put their name on it. And so I do, primarily I stick to books written by the person. And then I prefer it if they've actually read the audiobook. Since I do listen to it, I like to hear it in their
voice.
Yeah. Yeah, that'd be really neat to listen
And
to.
so most of them, Madeline Albright, read all of the books. And then Carol is read, she's reads it herself. Gary Sinise read his.
Did Betty White read hers?
Yes.
Too?
The couple actual biography books, she's read herself. And so I like to hear it in their own voice.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I was like, the one that you had me listen to in the car was
The third
Gilmore Girl. Yes. And that was also,
That is a great book.
it is a really good
actually.
book. And again,
Yeah, we have a coworker that read that one.
you know, like it's not one of those things I would normally like again pick up, but we were traveling and it was just enough time to be listening to it as in our travel. And it was actually really interesting to hear her story. And again, the same way how she started and how she got to where she is at now. And this is the plus side about seeing the background on the people that we watch on TV all the time, or, you know, whether they're musicians or whatever that may be, to see their softer side, like how it happened. There's so many people, like, I know it's crazy where it says rags to riches, right, is a thing, but realistically, that is a lot of the way
most of our greatest artists are
they
that
came
way.
up that way.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, they had to struggle.
Yeah.
Yes. Vi, what are some of your, like, do you like memoirs as well, or?
When I do listen to, most of the time, yeah, it'll be someone's memoir, biography, except the one book that has changed. I know the one that has changed me completely in my thought was The Mutant Project, which was this one. This was one of my first books that I picked up here. I'd seen it and I just looked really, you know, again, I'm a cover person. I'm like, that looks interesting. And just one of those that, you know, we talked about, like, what did it shift your perspective on this topic or issue? I had no idea. This talks about the CRISPR babies and genetically modified.
Oh, wow.
Actually how science has actually created babies in China, and how that went, and how that doctor ended up getting in trouble because, you know, they consider that breaking the law. You're basically playing a god. And so they didn't appreciate that, but it's just reading it, just amazing on how that even is a possibility. And just reading the science all behind that, I was really left in that mind awe of, like, my God, like, how far has science come that is something that you can actually do. And they did have twin girls, so you guys can read a little bit more on that and how that is actually something that has happened. You know, you see that like in sci-fi movies, and
You don't think they're actually
that it's actually somebody really doing that, and it's really what is in this book, and how that actually has happened, and how it's something that you can do. And again, as a younger age, I saw, I think, some sort of a article, a news thing they were playing on TV. They were talking about, like, being able to pick your child's hair color, their, you know, the eyes, and how you want him to look. And I just always thought that was like crazy. And I remember, like, oh, people are just playing gods, and I would just hear that as young, and then I read the book and I was like, my God, this is real. Like, it wasn't just something you just heard about. And at a young age, it was just one of those, like, does that really happen? Is that something you could do? Because then you start thinking, like, oh, it's like, if I could have my hair like a certain color, you know, you just start thinking of all the modifications before. Like, now we modify our bodies as adults, right?
Yes.
Because we can do that. We can modify ourselves now with all the science and the medical things that they've done. But to be able to get started modified as before you're even, it's just like a mind blowing. I don't know. There's lack of better words. It's just,
it is.
but that is one of the books. If anybody's interested in something of that nature, just the science behind it and the medical things behind that one.
Yes, and I love the medical aspect of that. And I was like, I kind of go more towards the medical sides of things, or a little bit of true crime here and there. And I know you guys like true crime too.
Yes.
But one of my favorite nonfiction ones was called Starvation Heights by Greg Olson. And it's about Linda Hazard, who was a fasting specialist. Like she was licensed by the state of Washington as a fasting specialist, and she gathered, oh, it was more than a dozen people, and she would pretty much starve them to death and then get them to will their money to her.
Oh my
And
gosh.
she had this sanatorium up in Seattle area in the mountains. And yeah, her idea was that food was the root of all disease. And so she would take them through this intense fasting period. And ultimately, it was about 12 or a little over 12 people that she ended up killing.
Oh my
And
gosh.
so that one, Greg Olson, he also wrote the Amish murders. I don't know the title of that one, but we've had a speaker come in and speak
talk
to
about
that. I
that
think, yeah. And then for true crime wise, I know Killers of the Flower Moon. I know that one's pretty popular. Most people around here have read it, but if you've not, that's a really good one about the Osage murders. And for me, for that one, it opened my eyes a little bit to how we tried to assimilate the Native Americans.
Yes.
Because I mean, we do need to read up on it more about what we did to the Native Americans, but after the fact, after how we made them have to assimilate to our culture
To what we
and
yeah.
and so it opened my eyes to that a little bit, and then just how the rampant racism kept I mean, the law enforcement people were in on it. The doctors were in on it. It's just amazing how that can control an entire society.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Unwatched, it can take.
And there's a lot of that history in our books too, just
Mhm.
knowing that, here in Kansas in general, about that. So if you did even read any of the Kansas books, you'll start seeing a little. They don't dip into it completely, but it's just a little, at least on some of the tribes that were around here and the things that they've also had to endure. And I think, yeah,
This
that
one
is a good.
really did open my eyes on that. It changed my perspective a lot.
Yeah, and I was like, I believe you have your dad as a background
Yes.
in studies of that
Yes,
as
because
well.
yeah, he's a professor at a tribal college. And so, I mean, I was around it a lot. And so I didn't read a lot about it because I was around so many
Right.
reservations and growing up.
Right, and it's normal, it's natural, so you're not really looking
Exactly. And
into it.
so it brought out, it helped me be a little bit more aware of what was going on.
Right, because when you're living in it, it's just like us, when we live in our town, we don't know
Mhm.
what's happening outside of it until we step outside of it,
Exactly.
right? So that's one of those
Yeah.
things that just don't look at
Yes.
until you step outside of your walls and then you realize, oh, okay, yeah, that I had no idea because you were so close to it. But
Exactly.
yeah, I think that any type of Native American stuff, I think is pretty good to
Yeah.
also look into, especially because we have so much history here in Kansas about it.
Yes, we do. Yeah.
And yeah, and I know it goes by really fast. Any other
Yes.
books that you want to specifically tell people about? I mean, I know before we start kind of wrapping up, because I know we got Reba book and just I mean, we have tons of nonfiction books you guys can pick up, but
Matthew Perry, right?
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
I know that one's a favorite of,
Yeah.
and you talked about the addiction that her daughter went through. I mean, this one, for anyone dealing with that, I've heard that this one is a great
Yeah, the
one.
Matthew Perry book was really good. Obviously, I think my other one was Michelle Obama. And it's not about, I mean, there it covers some time as being the first lady, but it really starts with growing up and how I mean they rented the upstairs of their aunt's apartment. Like they had a 2-story house that two families were living in. And they started from very minimal, very, very bottom, and just they had goals. Their parents pushed education. And so she went on to school, and obviously her career went from there. And Reba, this book mixes family stories, um, life in the music business, and recipes. So it's
That
a
would be a
recipe
good-
book. There's I don't know how many recipes, and there's a story, and then here's some food that kind of, so it's
That
Life
attributes
is
to it.
full of flavor.
Yes,
Yes.
I said that is
Yeah.
something really big and important to me as well culturally, where I'm like, that is really where we have all of our stories. And that was one of my talks recently, was how food influences and reminds you of some of the stories, and it brings you back. And I think that's probably what this is. Like, hey, when we used to sit down with grandma and make cornbread. And so this is something that and then you include the story of how you remember the first time and the smells and the aromas. So I think this is also a really good book for you to find also recipes, but also see a different side of how those memories triggered, or what they've done to be able to make that person who, again, it just builds us of who we are at this point, right? I think, again, great. We have a good variety here. Again, come and let us know what your guys' favorite nonfiction books are. AJ's always looking for new stories to listen to as well, or pick up. We've turned into more audio because we understand, we talk about this. Sometimes our life gets busy. So if we're traveling, you know what? You listen to a book, it's perfectly fine. There is no wrong way to read, listen, or even digitally. We always encourage that. You just pick it up, right?
Yep. Well, our time's come to an end. It's like, this has been a great conversation. I think I've learned a lot about these books with the memoirs, and there's a lot of books I want to read that you've mentioned here today. Is like, thank you so much, AJ, for coming and being a part of today's talk, and for giving us the insights into some of these celebrities' lives.
Of course, thank you for having me, and there's always room for learning.
Absolutely.
Yes, I absolutely agree. And even though I always say I'm forced to do some, I actually, I do. I appreciate to be able to see the other side of some of the stories and some of our history. So I do enjoy that. So anyways, thank you everyone for watching. We hope you've discovered at least a new book, or maybe even a new topic that sparks your curiosity. And if you enjoyed today's episode, you can follow us again on Instagram. And then you can find us also at Pioneer Memorial Library, or you can sign up to our website, colbylibrary.com, to receive notifications of our next show. So just remember that we have all those options social media wise.
And if you like the sound of some of these books too, we do have the physical books here, but we also have 2 digital platforms, Hoopla and Libby, and you can come in or call us on the phone and we can talk to you about how to get those set up. Or there's always interlibrary loan as well that we can get from another library if we don't have a book that we talked about today.
Yes, something specific. So, and again, if you follow us on Instagram, just remember to comment. Or on Facebook, let us know what you're reading. And as always, we're always looking to add titles to our TBR list. Don't forget to join us next time as we continue exploring the world of books and ideas.
All right. Well, until then, keep reading, keep learning, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah. Goodbye, everyone. Thank you.